The lighthouse keeper by the sea. Once upon a time, there was a lighthouse perched on a rugged cliff, overlooking the endless blue sea. It stood as a beacon of hope for sailors, its light piercing through the darkest nights and stormiest skies. The lighthouse was tended by a young woman named Clara, who had inherited the duty from her father. Clara loved the sea, it was her constant companion. Each evening, she climbed the winding staircase of the lighthouse, her lantern in hand, to ignite the great lamp that guided ships safely to shore. One summer evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Clara spotted a small fishing boat on the horizon. It seemed peaceful against the calm sea. She smiled, knowing the light would soon protect those on board when night fell. But by midnight, the weather had turned. A fierce storm rolled in, with thunder cracking and waves crashing against the rocks. Peering through the storm, Clara saw the same fishing boat struggling against the furious waves. The mast was broken, and the little vessel was being pushed dangerously close to the cliffs. Clara's heart raced. Without a second thought, she lit the lamp to its brightest and grabbed her father's old signal horn. Stepping out into the howling wind, she blew the horn and waved a large lantern back and forth, hoping the fishermen could see her. Through the sheets of rain, Clara noticed the boat shift course. Her signal had been seen. The fisherman steered the boat away from the rocks and towards the calmer waters near the harbor. Finally, he reached safety. Exhausted but grateful, he called out to Clara from below. "Thank you. Without you, I wouldn't have made it," he shouted over the crashing waves. The next morning, as the storm cleared and the sea returned to its calm state, the fisherman, a man named Elias, came to the lighthouse with a basket of freshly caught fish. "This is the least I can do to thank you," he said, his face full of gratitude. Clara smiled warmly. "The light did most of the work. I'm just glad you're safe." From that day on, Elias became a regular visitor to the lighthouse. He and Clara often shared stories of the sea, its beauty, its dangers, and its endless mysteries. Over time, a deep friendship grew between them, one built on trust, kindness, and the shared love of the ocean. The lighthouse remained a steadfast guardian of the shore, but now, it was also a place of friendship and warmth. And as the years passed, Clara's light not only guided lost sailors, but also reminded everyone of the courage it takes to stand against the storm. The Secret of the Forest Lodge. Long ago, in a kingdom surrounded by high mountains, there was a grand palace. The king and his people lived peacefully in the palace and the nearby village. Next to the palace was a large, mysterious forest. Few dared to enter it, for they believed the forest held secrets no one should disturb. In the middle of the forest, there was an old lodge where a man named Arlen lived. Arlen was the kingdom's forester. He cared for the trees, animals, and everything that grew in the forest. People rarely saw him in the village, but everyone knew he was kind and wise. One evening, as the sun was setting, a young villager named Alara came running to the palace. She was out of breath and frightened. "Your Majesty," she said to the king, "I saw something strange in the forest. There were lights moving between the trees, and I heard whispers." The king looked worried. He sent his guards to investigate, but they found nothing unusual. Still, the villagers grew uneasy. Stories of ghosts and magic spread quickly. That night, Arlen sat by the fire in his lodge, reading an old book. Suddenly, he heard footsteps outside. When he opened the door, he saw Alara standing there. "Arlen," she said, "I need your help. The forest is not safe anymore. I know you can protect it." Arlen nodded. "The forest speaks to those who listen," he said. I have noticed strange things too. Come, we must act before it's too late. The two walked deeper into the forest, guided by the moonlight. As they approached an ancient oak tree, the air grew colder. A soft glow appeared around the tree, and a voice whispered, "Who dares disturb our land?" Alara stepped back, but Arlen stood firm. "I am the forester," he said. "The forest is my home. Why are you restless, spirits?" The glow turned brighter, and 3 figures appeared. They were the forest guardians, spirits who protected the land for centuries. "Someone from the palace has stolen the crystal of harmony," one of them said. "Without it, the balance of nature is broken." Alara gasped. "The crystal? I heard it was just a legend." Arlen frowned. "It is real, and it is powerful. We must return it, or the forest will fall into chaos." The guardians gave Arlen and Alara a clue. The crystal was hidden in the palace, in the king's own chamber. Arlen and Alara left the glowing oak tree and hurried through the forest. The moonlight guided their path, but the air was heavy with tension. "If the crystal is in the king's chamber, how will we get it?" Alara asked. Arlen thought for a moment. "The king trusts me. I'll speak to him. But if he doesn't listen, we may have to take the crystal ourselves." As they reached the edge of the forest, the palace's tall towers came into view. The lights from the windows shimmered against the night sky. They slipped through the palace gates, avoiding the guards. Inside, the great hall was silent, except for the faint echo of footsteps. Arlen knew the king's chamber was on the highest floor of the eastern tower. They climbed the spiral staircase cautiously. When they reached the door, they heard voices inside. Peeking through a small crack in the door, they saw the king holding a glowing object, a crystal emitting a soft blue light. A shadowy figure stood in front of him. "You promised me power," the figure said in a low, growling voice. "With the crystal, I can take over the forest and the entire kingdom." The king looked troubled. "I never wanted harm to come to my people or the forest," he said. "But you said the crystal would protect the kingdom." Arlen whispered to Alara, "The king has been tricked. That figure must be a sorcerer." Before they could react, the sorcerer turned his head. "We have company," he hissed. The door flung open, and Arlen and Alara were pulled into the room by an unseen force. Well, the sorcerer sneered. "The forester and a little villager. How brave of you to interfere." Arlen stepped forward. "The crystal doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the forest. Return it, or you will face the guardian's wrath." The sorcerer laughed. "The guardians are nothing without their precious crystal." He raised his hand, and dark energy began swirling in the air. Arlen pulled a small pouch from his pocket. Inside was a handful of golden dust, enchanted pollen from the forest's oldest tree. He threw it into the air, and the room filled with a warm, golden glow. The sorcerer screamed as the light weakened his magic. "Alara, grab the crystal!" Arlen shouted. Alara dashed toward the king, who stood frozen with fear. She snatched the crystal from his hand and held it tightly. The room trembled as the crystal's light grew brighter. "No!" the sorcerer roared, but his power was fading. The golden light consumed him, and he vanished into thin air. The king fell to his knees, tears in his eyes. The Ocean's Secret. In a small coastal village, nestled between rolling hills and the vast, endless sea, lived a young woman named Selin. She was known throughout the village for her curious nature and her love for the ocean. Every day, After finishing her chores, Selin would walk to the beach, where the waves gently lapped against the shore, and the salty breeze filled the air. For as long as she could remember, Selin had been drawn to the water. It wasn't just the beauty of the ocean that captivated her, but the mystery it seemed to hold. Her grandmother, who had once been a sailor, often told her stories of the sea's deep secrets, stories of hidden treasures, ancient creatures, and islands that only appeared during the full moon. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the water, Selin decided to take a walk along the cliffs, which overlooked the sea. She had heard the village elders speak of a secret cove, hidden away from the world, but no one had ever been able to find it. They said that if you were meant to discover it, the sea would show you the way. Selin, fueled by a sense of adventure, made her way to the cliffs. As she reached the edge, she noticed something unusual, a soft glow coming from beneath the water, just below the surface. She leaned over the edge, squinting her eyes to get a better look, and to her astonishment, saw what appeared to be a pathway of glowing stones leading out into the ocean. Without hesitation, Selin stepped down from the cliffside, her feet landing softly on the stones that had appeared out of nowhere. As she walked along the glowing path, the sea seemed to calm around her, and the air grew thick with the scent of seaweed and salt. After walking for what felt like hours, Selin finally reached a secluded cove. The water was crystal clear, and the beach was lined with smooth, white stones. She had heard the village elders speak of a secret cove, hidden away from the world, but no one had ever been able to find it. They said that if you were meant to discover it, the sea would show you the way. Selin, fueled by a sense of adventure, made her way to the cliffs. As she reached the edge, she noticed something unusual, a soft glow coming from beneath the water, just below the surface. She leaned over the edge, squinting her eyes to get a better look, and to her astonishment, saw what appeared to be a pathway of glowing stones leading out into the ocean. Without hesitation, Selin stepped down from the cliffside, her feet landing softly on the stones that had appeared out of nowhere. As she walked along the glowing path, the sea seemed to calm around her, and the air grew thick with the scent of seaweed and salt. After walking for what felt like hours, Selin finally reached a secluded cove. The water was crystal clear, and the beach was lined with smooth, white stones. Visions of the ocean's past, its creatures, and its hidden wonders flooded her mind. She saw ancient ships lost to time, mystical sea creatures that danced beneath the waves, and powerful storms that had shaped the world's coasts. The stone held the memories of the sea itself, its secrets, its stories, its heart. When the visions faded, Selin found herself back at the edge of the cove, her fingers still tingling from the touch of the stone. The glowing stones that had led her there had vanished, and the sea seemed to return to its normal state. She stood there, overwhelmed by what she had just experienced. Over the following days, Selin returned to the cove, visiting the magical stone again and again. She knew she had discovered something truly special, something that belonged to the ocean itself. But the stone never revealed its secrets to anyone else. It was as if it had chosen Selin, giving her the gift of understanding the ocean's true power and mystery. Selin never told anyone in the village about the secret cove. She knew that some things were meant to remain hidden, just as the ocean held its secrets deep beneath its waves. And so, every evening, she would walk along the cliffs, her heart connected to the ocean, knowing that the sea had shared its most ancient secret with her. And from that day on, the ocean never seemed quite so mysterious to Selin. She had seen its soul, felt its heartbeat, and understood the deep, eternal connection between the land, the sea, and the stars above. The unexpected flight. Anna was a young aviation enthusiast working as a ground crew member at Skyport International Airport. Every morning, she put on her reflective vest, tightened her ponytail, and stepped out onto the bustling tarmac. The whirring of engines, the scent of jet fuel, and the sight of planes lining up for takeoff made her heart race with excitement. She loved her job, but her dream was to become a pilot. One particularly busy afternoon, Anna was helping passengers at the boarding gate for Flight 208 to Dubai. A call came over her radio. "Anna, report to Gate 14 immediately." She hurried over, where her supervisor, Mr. Jameson, looked frazzled. "Anna, we've got a situation. The co-pilot for the Dubai flight is stuck in traffic and won't make it on time. The captain needs someone to assist with the pre-flight checks. You've completed ground crew training for cockpit operations, right?" Anna hesitated for a moment, her hands trembling slightly. "Yes, I have," she replied. "Good. You're going in," said Mr. Jameson, handing her a clipboard. Heart pounding, Anna walked briskly across the tarmac to the gleaming Boeing 787. The captain, a tall man with salt and pepper hair, greeted her with a firm handshake. "Anna, thank you for stepping in. Don't worry, I'll guide you through everything. Let's get started." She followed him up the steep stairs into the cockpit. It was her first time inside during an actual operation. The dials, screens, and switches felt like an entirely different world, yet somehow familiar from her training. The captain handed her the checklist. "Okay, Anna, let's run through the pre-flight procedures. Start with the fuel levels and hydraulics." Anna's voice was steady as she read out the numbers and confirmed system statuses. "Fuel levels are at 95%, hydraulics at optimal pressure," she reported. "Excellent," the captain said with a nod. As passengers began boarding, Anna helped with announcements. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Flight 208 to Dubai. We are delighted to have you with us today," she said, trying to keep her voice professional despite the butterflies in her stomach. With the final passenger seated, the captain prepared for pushback. Anna stayed in the cockpit, eager to observe. The view from the flight deck was breathtaking, planes taxiing, the control tower standing tall, and the runway stretching into the horizon. During takeoff, the force of acceleration pressed Anna into her seat. She watched in awe as the plane lifted smoothly into the sky. Once they reached cruising altitude, the captain turned to her. "Anna, would you like to assist with some basic controls during the cruise?" Anna's eyes widened. "Really? Are you sure?" "Absolutely. You've earned it," he said with a smile. Under his guidance, Anna adjusted the heading and monitored the altitude. For the next hour, she felt like she was living her dream. She listened intently as the captain explained the navigation systems, weather radar, and communication protocols. Suddenly, a call came from the cabin crew. A passenger had misplaced their laptop and was causing a small commotion. Anna volunteered to help. She stepped out of the cockpit, calmed the passenger, and found the laptop tucked under a seat. The grateful passenger gave her a warm smile. Back in the cockpit, the captain chuckled. "You're good at managing people, Anna. That's an essential skill for a pilot." As they approached Dubai, the skyline glittered in the distance. Anna observed every step of the landing procedure. When the wheels touched down, she felt a wave of pride and relief. After the passengers disembarked, the captain turned to Anna. "You did great today. Keep chasing your dream, Anna. One day, this cockpit will be yours." As she stepped off the plane, the bustling Dubai airport felt like a gateway to her future. When Anna returned to Skyport that evening, she was exhausted but couldn't stop smiling. Her colleagues gathered around, eager to hear about her experience. "It was incredible," she said. "I think today was the day my dream took its first flight."
The magical book. Lily loved books. She always read books in her free time. One day she visited the library near her house. It was an old library with many books. Lily liked to explore the library because it was very quiet. She walked along the shelves, looking at all the books. Suddenly, Lily saw something strange. There was an old book on a high shelf. It had a beautiful golden cover. The book looked old, but it was shining. Lily took the book from the shelf and opened it. To her surprise, the pages were empty. She turned the pages again and again, but there was nothing written on them. Lily said aloud, "Hello, is anyone there?" Suddenly, the book started to glow. Words appeared on the pages. They said, "Go outside and find the path." Lily was amazed. She wondered what the book meant. She decided to follow the words. She went out of the library and into the garden behind it. The sun was shining and the flowers were beautiful. She walked along a small path. She could hear the birds singing in the trees. The book said again, "Walk straight ahead." Lily followed the path and saw a small wooden gate. She opened the gate and found a secret garden. The garden was filled with colorful flowers, and there was a small lake in the middle. The book told her, "Jump into the lake." Lily was nervous. She had never heard of such a thing before, but the book glowed brightly, and she felt she had to follow its instructions. She took a deep breath and jumped into the lake. When she landed in the water, everything changed. She felt like she was in a different world. The trees were bigger, and the animals were strange. There were birds with rainbow-colored feathers and tall trees with sparkling leaves. Lily looked around and saw the book floating in the air. The book spoke again. "Find the key." Lily looked at the ground and saw a small golden key. She picked it up and held it in her hand. The book glowed again and said, "Go back to the lake." Lily walked back to the lake. She felt excited and curious. She jumped into the water once more. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the library. The book was closed, and everything was quiet again. Lily smiled. She knew the book had many secrets. She would come back to the library and find out more. The adventure was just beginning.